already been in. Damn! Stick 'em, stick 'em.
What we're looking at here is the rather popular and rabidly advocated for Tracker Dan Bloodshark. This is, I guess, basically the knife for the Sayoc community, the practitioners of Sayoc Kali or Sayoc Tactical blade arts. The sheath is the typical blade rig sheath. Again, is advocated broadly by this community. So let's pop that sheath off and take a look at what we've got here. This knife is made out of 154 cm with a black oxide on it of some sort, and in this case OD green handle wrapping. It's about an 1/8 inch thick, somewhere between a 3.5 inch and 4 inch blade if you measure from the front of the grip forward, I guess. Probably about an equal length handle. Some of the first things that jump out at me here grabbing this is I wear a size medium glove, and this puppy digs into my hands. This point here on the pommel, which on a larger grip, when that extends beyond your hand, does work to catch the hand, but that's only really important on big knives like bolos. But here, in this small knife, that's digging into my hand. Makes it uncomfortable. Would make it uncomfortable to train with. This point here is not really doing much better. And then, if you follow this line here, the curvature of the rear part of the grip, where the middle ring and little fingers are supposed to curve in, is deeper than the index finger notch. And that point in between there and the index finger notch is sharp, uncomfortable, and it doesn't really line up well with a lot of hand size. That ends up being almost inside my fingers there. I can adjust for it, but then I'm definitely getting those points on the pommel inside my grip. The other problem I have here is this is keeping this strongest part of your hand here pushed further out and closer to being as open as it would need to be to slide up the blade, which if you take the trainer for this knife and ram it into anything with much resistance, you find is pretty easy. If you look, the finish on this knife is horribly rough, and you can see where it contacts the rivet for the clip on the sheath. And that finish is being worn off and having some brass deposited there, but the actual metal finishing on this is horrible. It looks like it was rough ground and then immediately taken to a higher grit belt without any intermediate steps to smooth that finish. The plunge cuts are uneven. It badly needs a little choil back here to make sharpening easier. Just not a very well finished knife. And you can also see that because of that black oxide and that really rough finish that in here under the cord wrap, it's starting to rust. Although 154 cm is a stainless, it's prone to rusting when you expose the grain too much. It needs a really high finish to get the most out of its stain resistant properties. And of course, the grain is really open on this because of this rough finish. So I don't know if this is going to show up on video, but this is the trainer for the Bloodshark, and looking at it, it's pretty obvious that it's just a blank for the live Bloodshark that's been ground down. It's shorter than a live Bloodshark, so that would pretty much indicate that just Tracker Dan takes a blank and he grinds it down. And actually, seems to finish it better than he finishes the live blade, but whatever. Except, I don't know if this will show up on video, I'm hoping it does. There's sharp kerf left on at least this hole. I guess that's the only hole in the whole damn knife, but this sharp kerf is left from drilling instead of being properly deburred. And over time, as this is used and that wears a little bit, that kerf's just going to cut that paracord. Paracord is flexible, no matter how hard you tie it, and it will flex in that hole a little bit, work back and forth, and eventually you'll start seeing some fraying, and it'll tear itself up a lot sooner than it would normally, because he's too lazy or ignorant or whatever to properly deburr something like $100 trainer. That's, in my opinion, fairly inexcusable. And if you look here, although it's fairly nicely rounded and radiused on the blade, the handle has some really nasty sharp points on it. On some serious work against a heavy bag or anything like that, you're really tearing your hands up with these points. And honestly, like most metal trainers, even with that blunted end, you could stick this in somebody.
If I really knuckle down on it, okay, I can do it.
Yeah, but how hard are you knuckling down?
Grip, I mean, I'm like for all I'm worth.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm just every goddamn time.
Right again.
You know, so you really just clench it for all you're fucking worth, or if you're just having a normal grip on it where you can actually maintain that grip for any like period of time, it does that.
You got a captain's a crush handy?
Yeah, I can close it too.
Grab it. Without a cut, without an edit. Grab it, close it.
Well, now I gotta find it.
There's your 3.
I can't close that one yet.
You win a free Emerson if you do.
There we go. That's the 1.
What's the 1? What's the rating on the 1?
The 1 is 140. 140 pounds. I just had the 2 here. Here it is. So this is a number 2 Captain's a Crush. So that's 195 pounds.
And it still slips through your damn hand.
It still slips through my hand. I mean, if I'm really bearing down on it, fine. But I can't maintain that.
No.
And I lose a lot of dexterity and speed and so on as well.
And that's certainly not the grip advocated by a lot of the FMA community.
No. I mean, for most of the Sayoc videos you see them do, they're doing like some kind of grip like
some
this.
version of Filipino grip.
Yeah, and
yeah. Let's look at the Bloodshark here and have a quick conversation about ergonomics. Not really much of a conversation, since there's nobody here to talk back to me, but let's talk about ergonomics a little bit, and ergonomics on knives, the way the hand works. Now, I'll preface this by saying I have been told by guys who are advocates of this knife and of the system that seems to prefer this knife that I'm wrong about the way the human hand works. That's fine. I disagree. From my medical background, taken a lot of anatomy and physiology over the years. I was pre-med for a while before I gave up on the whole go to college, get a job, get money from a bank, get a house, have a family model that everybody else seems so married to. But pre-med for a while, been EMT off and on for the last 10 years, taken some other advanced med classes, and yeah, a lot of A&P. And my understanding, and the understanding that all of the papers I can find and all of the scientific literature I can find, the way the hand works, will be is as I'm about to describe. So if you think that the hand works differently, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear some studies to back it up. So let's look at these knives. Here we have the Bloodshark, the trainer for the Bloodshark, the excellent Benchmade Contigo 810, and the Shivworks clinch pick. And also, for reference, the Boker Tomahawk, which we're only going to be talking about that much of the handle of, but we'll get to that. So let's look at the Bloodshark and the way it sits in the hand here. The Bloodshark is wider from the top side of the handle, the spine side of the handle, to the narrowest point on the index finger notch is wider there than at any other point on the handle except for the sort of sub-hilt right there. So it's wider at the deepest part of the index finger notch than it is where the middle ring and pinky fingers close around on the knife. Now, I understand to some extent why it's shaped the way it's shaped. With the sheath system covering up so much of the handle, this provides really solid purchase to these fingers for drawing the knife. Let me actually turn that knife around and insert it properly. So when you go to draw the knife, because you can't get a full grip on the knife because the kydex gets in your way, you're relying on catching the knife with essentially these two fingers at the back of the hand, the ring finger and the little finger. So you have to catch and then pull it with those fingers, and only as it comes out of the sheath can you then begin to curl the other fingers around in a full fighting grip. So having it narrow enough there that you can catch and pull backwards makes a certain amount of sense given the sheath system. Now, I feel that sheath system is flawed because it does not allow for a full fighting grip at the outset of your drawstroke. It's expecting you to start your drawstroke under pressure with a grip no more complete than that. But moving beyond that, that dip there, that narrowness, does give the fingers of the hand somewhere to pull into and pull down strongly. Now, my problem with this is that for that to really work, you need to be able to do it with the strongest part of your hand. And the strongest part of your hand is not the little finger and the ring finger. It is, in fact, the index finger, middle finger, and then ring finger. That's where your grip strength comes from. And what's happening here is you're isolating the index finger and the thumb because they're pushed so much out of alignment by this rapidly widening towards the blade handle. So what you end up with is having to overgrip to maintain a firm grip, and then these fingers still don't get a lot of purchase because there's nothing there for them to pull down on. Your index finger is not pulling down into that finger notch at all. It ends up not being a secure grip, as you can see in the video earlier when we were slamming into the heavy bag made of tires. The knife just doesn't stay in your hand because it's opening your hand wider towards the front of your hand, which just sort of sets up this funnel that feeds the knife back down into your damned hand, which on the live blade you'd end up holding on to blade after a good thrust. So while I understand having, and I appreciate having, a place to pull your fingers into so the fingers pull down tightly, I don't think the Bloodshark is doing it well. Take a look at the Benchmade 810 here. And you see the front part of the handle is the narrowest. This part of your hand where your grip strength comes from, here at the top of your hand, can really choke down in there and build a good firm grip. And then there's still narrowing here for the hand to pull into. There's even this nice dip in the structure there for the heel of the hand to firmly dig in, like they're trying to do on the Bloodshark here. The Bloodshark is too short for my hand for that. Again, I wear a medium glove. But this is a much better handle. You can see these fingers here pull down, these fingers here pull down. It's much more appropriate for getting a good firm grip on the knife than the handle of the Bloodshark. Going even shorter, but still able to do that, is something like the handle on the ShivWorks clinch pick here, which again, radical example of narrower towards the blade than it is at the pommel. Your hand really pulls down in there. You can get it good and firm and locked on, and that grip fills the hand whilst providing a firm hand stop. Something that the Bloodshark does not do at all. The only way to get a stop with the Bloodshark would be to set it in the pommel of the hand like this and use some loose, very much friable grip here that again is relying on weaker fingers for grip and kind of isolating your thumb and forefinger from being able to provide actually effective grip. Now, that pommel supported position doesn't allow you to get your hand really firmly gripped on the knife without kind of twisting it around, and still that's an awkward position and you're still not squeezing with as much pressure here as you could generate. A small knife like this does not need to have this radical pommel swell. It's comfortable when done right on a long enough handle to have a little bit of dip and then swell along this line here. Rises and then it goes down and it comes back up. That cradles the heel of the hand quite nicely, but a knife this short, it doesn't cradle anything. That just digs into my hand. If I get it to where it cradles, I'm over the guard. What guard there is, over the little bump there that serves as a guard. And it's not really necessary. A swell like that is necessary on a big knife or a big tool that has weight out front, so that when you move it, you're trying to keep it from sliding out of your hand back here. Something like the tomahawk here, which you can see has a pretty good swell right there. So your hand, when you swing this thing, catches and stays put. Well, you don't need that on something like the Bloodshark or any other small knife. The ergonomics of this knife are ridiculous and terrible. Let's also talk about sheathing here and sheath design. The, again, Bloodshark is very, very popular, and the sheaths for it are also very popular. The sheaths are available from Blade Rigs, and they make this style of sheath for a variety of other knives, even other packages with other knives. I have a lot of problems with this sheath. We're going to compare it to this sheath here on this ShivWorks clinch pick, which is also not really my favorite. It's not my ideal, but it's closer, and we can talk about the differences here in these sheaths and what I dislike about the Bloodshark sheath versus a sheath like this, and also what I dislike about the sheath on this, just for reference, and also some of what I do like about the Bloodshark sheath. One of the things I like about the Bloodshark sheath is that although it does have some rattle to it, they did a decent enough job of making it ambidextrous. It's something you don't see attempted a lot with a sheath that has such a fixed clip where you can't change the sides on the clip. A lot of times you see sheaths are offered in just a dedicated format if they don't have an ability to switch them around side to side. And I'll give them credit for having an ambidextrous sheath that works for a kind of complex design that's not symmetrical from side to side. That's, kudos to them for that. The Kydex construction is not the best I've seen, but it's also not the worst. I mean, I think their molding could be a little bit better. It's obviously molded to a form. It's very, very much compact. The small rivets used give it a very slim feel. I'm told that for carry, this sheath is very comfortable. I can see why. But I have problems with it. This is a combative knife. This is designed to be used in self-defense or legitimate self-offense or whatever. It is a combative tool. Access in a combative situation under pressure is a tricky thing at best. Once you have a knife in your hand, getting done what you need to do with it is not that hard. It does not take a lot of fanciness or art. There's very little complexity there. You can put complexity into it. You can spend a lot of time putting complexity into it. You can get better at anything. But the realities of using a knife against another human being are pretty simple. The pointy end goes into the other guy. You stab his spine from the front, and you do it until he stops whatever aggression is threatening your life or the life of a loved one. Once the tool is in hand, knife combatives are fairly simple. Access is the problem. Building your access is tricky. It takes training. It takes a lot of pressure testing to refine your skills. One component of that, one of the more important, although one of the last components of that, is being able to develop or build a full fighting grip on the tool as it comes out of whatever is carrying it. Now, in the firearms community, this is fairly well accepted. You see guys talking about wanting to be able to get that full grip with the tang of the gun high, the web of their hand high in the tang, and have that full grip on the way out of the holster, and everybody seems on board with that. But then, with knife combatives, nobody seems on board with that. What I mean by a full fighting grip. What I mean by a full fighting grip is this. Fingers fully wrapped around the knife in the position where you want them to be when you want to stab or cut someone with a knife, with the thumb locked down. That's a full fighting grip. I know everybody has variations, the thumb on top, the thumb along the side, whatever, but the fingers fully wrapped around the grip and the thumb positioned where you want it to be positioned, or as close to that as you can get from the beginning of the drawstroke. I want to achieve that. Now, I can achieve that with the carry systems that I use and have used for a number of years. It's not impossible. You cannot achieve that with the Bloodshark. Since I'm using my left hand here in this video while I hold the camera with my right, let's switch it around. So let's say I have this, I'm going to go to draw the knife. I put my hand over it, and this strongest part of my hand here, the index, middle, and ring finger, the front top part of the hand, is gripping kydex. I cannot draw against that because I'm pulling on the sheath. So what I'm left with is curling my little finger and my ring finger down past the kydex and pulling this sort of hooking motion to pull the knife on out, which we'll simulate here. But going ahead and doing that, which means I'm drawing with my hand like this. So the earliest grip I get on the tool coming out of this sheath, because the way it covers the handle, is this. And then as it comes out, I can slowly bring this finger in and this finger in, and then my thumb down. But under pressure, if I get hit, if I have somebody crashing against me or fighting back against me while I'm trying to make this draw, if I'm in some kind of a fucked up tangle with a guy, I really don't want to have just this grip on the tool as it's coming out. That's horribly loose. Even if I'm gripping that as tightly as I can, just the smallest amount of side-to-side pressure can dislodge that. I want to get my fingers wrapped around it early, and I want to build that firm, strong grip so that as I'm dealing with any kind of pressure, any kind of leverage in between my body and my assailant's body, that I've got a hold of the knife. All I have to do is pull it out and turn the point towards him and start going to work. That's a lot harder to do when you've got just like this and suddenly it ends up, It's a really poor way to design a sheath, and it's not unique to this knife. A lot of kydex sheaths do this, but it kind of appalls me that as popular a combative knife as this is, this sheath doesn't allow for a full grip. It's relying on hooking with these fingers. Compare that to a sheath like this, which I dislike because it covers a great deal more of the handle than it needs to. It could be cut off right there. It does block a little bit of a full fighting grip at the top of the hand, but it allows the fingers to curl around the grip in a full grip from the very beginning of the draw. Note, this knife is still sheathed. Even if I lay it flat, like it would be on a belt or something, I can get my hand on it and my fingers curled around it, and all it takes then is my thumb going down. And I have a full fighting grip, which means that as it comes out of the sheath, which is much tighter fit than the blade rig sheath on the Bloodshark, as it comes out, hey, I have a full grip. from the very beginning of my draw stroke. Full grip. Just have to tighten down that thumb, and it's as strong as it will ever be. And it's as close as it can be from the very beginning. That's what a combative sheath for combative access on a knife or any tool needs to allow, is a full fighting grip at the very beginning. One additional comment on the sheath. The sheath does not allow for using any alternative mounting method other than the clip. There's not even a hole drilled for attaching like a shock cord type loop. The clip used, it does allow for a variety of mountings, and it's better than some clips because it's got this catch here, but it's very thin. Apparently these are referred to as being polished, so they won't hang up on things other than where you want them to, but that's a pretty sharp edge. The clip is really kind of shitty. I could, if I put this on my belt and really twist it around on it, just in a tangle, I could bend the shit out of that clip quite easily. It's not that thick, and it's not that strong. It also does not provide that secure of a mount. If you mount this on a belt, there's room for it to slop back and forth like any single attachment, but because it's not tight, there's room for it to move back and forth, which means the knife might be like this, or it might be like this when you go to draw it if it's mounted straight up and down. If you mount it horizontally on a belt, like a lot of people do and like seems to be advocated, basically means you're going over a belt loop with this guy. Now, belt loops on most pants are not sewn on that strongly. It's one of the most common failure points, even on tactical pants, is the belt loops fail. I've got numerous pairs of pants, everything from blue jeans to old BDUs to tactical pants that have fucked up belt loops. It's not something I really want to attach a life-saving tool to. The other problem there is, if it's just clipped behind the belt loop, again, you've got that single point of contact and you've got all that room for it to slide back and forth. It might be here, it might be there. It's going to move all over the place. A lot of guys seem to solve that by putting a piece of bicycle inner tube or some kind of rubber loop over the belt and the sheath here. But under a firm draw stroke, that's not likely to hold. I can see that coming loose over time, and also see it being brushed during the day and just rolling back down. The rubber is eventually going to rot. You know, if guys aren't paying attention, it's going to be an unreliable way of securing a knife versus an actual proper belt attachment, like a pair of flexible loops or even a tech lock. And I fucking hate tech locks, but I would rather use a tech lock than this. This is absolutely naff.
Stick 'em, stick 'em, stick 'em, ha ha ha.